Hi everyone. My name is Daniel Fuentes Licht. This is I'm going to explain about my work. I'm kind of nervous because it's my first time in a congress, and I have never been in congress, and either online congress. So I'm going to try to be relaxed and enjoy this. I'm sorry if someone doesn't understand me, but I will try my best. So I'm from Madrid, as was said. I'm here to introduce this research is called "Feeling Safe at Night: An Utopia for Women." This question I would like to keep in mind during all my presentation, because maybe then in the debate is interesting to go back with this question, if the safety for women in the night in cities is kind of utopia or something we can reach anytime. The subtitle of my work is Gender-Based Street Harassment in ludic central spaces of Madrid, in the leisure nightlife in the center of Madrid. So let's start the introduction. For introduce this topic, it's important to think about what is the origin of this research. So I grew up in a small village, not in Madrid, and when I moved, I started to be interested in in the activity of the city, and when I started to study psychology, and when I was in my last year, I started to collaborate with geographies of nocturnal city. That is a project led by the doctor Begoña Bayona that spoke here this morning. Geografías de la ciudad nocturna. This is the comparative and applied analysis of young nightlife in Madrid, Barcelona, and Lisbon, as she said in her conference. And I had the pleasure of being part of this project to learn and to use this experience to do my degree final work of psychology. And the presentation I'm doing today here is a selection of this work, of the main points of this work. The first thing we have to talk about is the gender perspective, feminist perspective, that is central in this work. This is because of the characteristic of street harassment is something, some problem is in the spectrum of gender-based violence. So this perspective is like central. So when I went to Madrid, I discovered feminist activism and my role, like men, in this struggle, like in the second line. And this is also something that I would like to take before in the debate, because the contradiction of being a man researching about something that suffer a woman, and you are not never be able to suffer like that. This problematic is something contradictory for me, and I would like to have this in the table to discuss about this. And to be careful to not invisibilize some women colleagues that works in this field, and maybe their work is brilliant, much more brilliant than mine, maybe. I'm going to try to do a definition of street harassment. because there is a complicated concept, because there are a lot of definition, and it's a concept between academic and activism. So we have to keep in mind that there is not recollected all the perspectives of these problematics. There is a study of Bastomsky and Smith of 2017 that remind us that women are more likely to report the experience of this kind of experience of public and civic, and to report negative impacts of these experiences and they are more likely to avoid the avoid the public space for fear of this situation of harassment. So we have to keep in mind that I want to focus on that is a problematic for women. So to defining this situation, possible experience that men may have in similar conditions will be left out of this analysis. So going to the definition, there is an author, Micaela Di Leonardo, that in 1981 she made a definition very complete and very great. I'm going to read it. She said, street harassment occurs when one or more estranged men accuse one or more women in a public place, which is not the woman's work site. She make the difference between work site and family and public space. Street harassment is only public space and it occurs with strangers. She said, through looks, words, or gestures, the man asserts his right to intrude the woman's attention, defining her as a sexual object and forcing her to interact with him. There are very interesting concepts that we could go deeper, like sexual objectification, forcing to interact, the attention, and this stuff. I would like to go deeper, but I try to be brief. There's another academic, very good, I like a lot. It's Holly Curl about this topic. She's an expert. She's not very known as Micaela Di Leonardo, but her definition is very good because it's shorter. It's shorter and clear. She said that street harassment is gender-based harassment that occurs in public space, again, through unwanted words and actions of men invading the physical and emotional space of unknown women. She focused on the physical and emotional space. That is something we are not used to think about, the emotional problems that happen with this. As I say, this is something between activism and academic, and there's a lot of experience internationally, but there is a lack of experience in Madrid, in Spain, and I think in the south of Europe. That is the context we have here. One of the most important is Hollaback. It's an experience that works resisting the street harassment from a perspective of leaderless, and through the use of technology, of online technology, mainly with making harassment maps online, in which women including LGBTQ plus people, can empower themselves, like through the storytelling tool, like saying the problem, the situation they had. So they try to find a solution or an intervention of this topic. This is initiative present in 72 cities and in 24 countries, and there are some others small local initiatives such as Pink Shares or Gulabi Gang in India. In Egypt, harassment. Stop Street Harassment in the United States is one of the most important of these platforms in the world, and Everyday Sexism in the United Kingdom, etc. Observatorio contra el acoso callejero from Chile, that is people who have researched a lot, not only. And the one of Stop Street Harassment, they say that there is not really a standardized definition of street harassment yet, but we are on it. We are trying to put everything together, because this is the most commonly used term in academic and activism, but there is confusion with another terms like sexual assault or sexual harassment that includes work, schools, on all other places. Street harassment is only in the public space, like I said before. Another important
Daniel, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just take a look at the time, because you're still in the introduction and you're way past half of the time. Okay, just for you to organize. Okay.
How many I'm now? How many time?
You're half your time.
Okay.
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 Just for you to know.
Okay, thank you. Free to be is the project I wanted to mention is from the Plan Internacional, NGO, very important, and this is a program we have used in like it's very important for us in this work. So I continue. Sorry. So the objective of this study was like to study street harassment problem and how women feel in this experience in nightlife, in ludic center spaces. For this, the hypothesis is that the nightlife practices are related. The specific nightlife practices are related to this feeling of insecurity and the probability of the perceived probability of suffering this kind of street tourism. For the method, we used the instruments made by ourselves, by the group. First one, it was a nightlife habits scale. Is because it's made from us, I think it could be had more fiability, but we didn't find any instrument standardized for this. So we measured the general frequency of nightlife habits, like higher, high, low, 5 categories: very high, high, medium, low, and very low. The specific frequency of nightlife habits, the resource, like bars, terrazas, the tables are outside the bars, alternative leisure places like free parties or like that, drinking in squares. Botellón is like drinking in parks with cheap and young people. Showrooms like cinema, theater, and these kind of things. Meeting us at houses, discotheques with entrance, and pubs with no pay for going. The scale of street harassment, we measure first a scale in which women could choose between 20 situations that happened to them. There were situations clustered in 5 categories: danger avoidance, like crossing the street when you see someone coming in front of you, or running because of fear or avoid a dark place. Non-verbal, non-contact harassment, including catcalling, whistling, and these kind of things that doesn't include any word. Verbal harassment, like insults or like that. Physical intimidation, including masturbation in public in front of someone who doesn't consent in public space, or running through someone or following. And the physical contact, including touching, kissing without consent, and also raping and like that. We had one part of description of testimonies with women could explain more like what happened in this situation they had, and we had another part in which we studied like some zones in Madrid of risk that where we wanted to replicate the results of Free to Be of Plan Internacional, the study I mentioned before. The sample was 99 women living in Madrid to have been in central nocturnal ludic spaces, and the ages were to 18 to 56 years. We didn't stop with 18 years because this is a problem affecting also young girls. So we thought it was important to include them. For method, we did like analysis of psychometrical things, the factorial structure of the data we had, and the descriptive and exploratory quantitative analysis, and we had a qualitative content analysis, an approach of this, because I know here there is people who is expert on this topic, and it's only kind of approach of analysis content is very difficult and technique, and we have to we didn't do like for very, I don't know. About the results, the quantitative one, about the fiability, we had very acceptable one. I think we could have better, but I think it's kind of fine. 0.76. About the factorial structure of data, the first scale we had the 74% of the explained variance. That's kind of good. We had we found that four factors. Sorry, because here is not translated because I couldn't translate the image. And we have one factor related with bars and terrazas, that is nightlife in establishments. we had another factor related to alternative leisure places, squares and drinking in parks, cheaper and in public space. Another factor related with private space or in showrooms like cinema and theater and houses, and another factor related with discos and pubs. About the second scale, we had 55% of explained variance, and we have one factor related with the physical component that includes physical intimidation and harassment, physical harassment, and the other one are together in another factor.
The time is getting closer.
Okay, I have only three.
You have a very few time. Please try to conclude. I'm sorry.
Okay, okay. Very quickly, we found like frequency was low on nightlife habits in Madrid, and they choose bars and terrazas like more common habit, and the street harassment more prevalent with danger avoidance and this non-verbal non-contact harassment. The interaction with of the factors, we found that the leisure related with public space is kind of more related with the harassment with physical component, the relation with the hypothesis, and this is about the qualitative content analysis. And I think I haven't no time, so I didn't count the time well, so sorry. This is like the frequency of appearance of the in the testimonies of the, I don't know how to explain, but the testimonies were we were reading this, and when we found some word related with these categories, we counted it like it was content, the appearance of the words, and not the relationship between the words. For conclusion, we have to highlight that this is a research of set curves, not to make conclusion, to find a way to research that I think it's kind of important, and I think it's something we could like deep more. We wanted to compilate theoretically all the theories we had, and we have to say that there's a lack of studies in Madrid in this field, and in general, I think it's kind of something we could research more. The discussion is kind of long, so I'm going to not say about the limitation of the study is very there are a lot, because of course I'm kind of young researcher, so it's something like a pilot research is not something we can like getting a lot of very conclusion very solid, but I think the most important thing is the relevance of naming and studying some hidden violence that we don't see it like very important, but it's very necessary to try to structure this knowledge for having like better cities for everyone, not only for the mainstream subjects. And I think sorry for saying this so quickly, I think, and that's all.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm sorry for being doing some pressure, but
it's okay.
As your first conference, you must learn that time is precious, so that everyone can say what they want to.
Of course.
But thank you. It was very interesting, and I'm sure that in the questions you can elaborate some things that you couldn't do now. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if the next presenter is in the room. Marta Zavalza. Is she here? No, she's not. So we don't have any information that she was missing the session. So maybe we can, she's not coming at all? Okay. So I'm sorry again, Daniel. You had more time than I knew. But maybe after we can talk about your work. It's very interesting and we have a lot to talk about. So maybe we can pass to Jordan and Mia. They are both here, right? John and Rowe from the University College of London and Mia Rafalowicz-Campbell from, I'm sorry, Campbell. Okay, now you can present yourselves if you want. So go ahead, please start your presentation.
Thank you. Yes, Mia Rafalowicz-Campbell from Campbell Tickell. Yes, so I'm Mia and I'm going to be presenting with Jordan. I'm just going to share my screen now. So do let me know if you can't see that, but I think you should be able to. Right, so today we're talking about expanding the field of urban night studies through student-led policy engagement. So Jordan and I are going to reflect on our time as students on the Urban Studies MSc at UCL and the thematic focus of that year, which was the urban night. In doing so, we hope to share some insights on the potential approaches of what's an emerging field of study and one which we suggest could learn from the methodologically diverse and policy and practice-driven approaches that guided us in our studies. So first, we're going to tell you a little bit about the course that we did and the thematic focus of the urban night before speaking about a piece of policy engagement that we undertook as a class, which was a response to London's Nighttime Commission consultation. And then following that, we'll each unpack our respective group projects where we assumed the identities of urban practitioners to explore specific issues relating to the urban night. And then we'll close with a few reflections from the work and potential relevance for a field of night studies. So in 2017, Jordan and I joined the course alongside a 23-strong international cohort from a range of professional and academic backgrounds, a diversity that you can see on screen and one typical of the students who join this master's. Bringing together these students and their varying entry points to urban studies undoubtedly benefited the projects that we're going to get onto later. So the urban night was chosen by our course leader, Dr. Andrew Harris, as the program thematic, given both the increased policy and academic attention paid to the topic in recent years, which of course is why we're all here today. But a headline initiative in London, as widely referenced, is the appointment of Amy LeMay as the Night Tsar in 2016. And she kindly contributed to our end of year event, which you may have seen a photograph of on the last slide. On screen here now are some student drawings from a night walking exercise that we did early on in the course, where we were tasked in pairs to document a journey through drawings or field recordings, photo essays, and site writing.
Thanks, Mia. So for this presentation, we're focusing on the core urban practices module in the second term, where we explored and experimented with the ways urban issues are addressed in practice. Each week, an external practitioner reflected on their work connected to Nocturnal City. An architecture firm spoke on their proposal to activate London's canals at night. Community organisation Soho Society discussed the frictions of nightlife in a residential neighbourhood. And we welcomed representatives of a union campaigning for precarious night workers, a designing out crime unit at the Metropolitan Police Force in London, and a filmmaker depicting London's nocturnal edgelands. And the module posed 3 key questions for us. So, which methods and approaches hold the most promise for engaging with contemporary urban life? How can practical experiences extend urban scholarship? And how might we, as students, reshape our own work, life experiences, and career paths by engaging with the interfaces between theory and practice? So in February 2018, we submitted a response to London's Nighttime Commission consultation. As a group, or as a class, we critiqued the narrative by which the urban night was being promoted in London. We commented on what we perceived to be the narrow focus in the consultation that prioritised leisure, entertainment and culture above health and social care or transport and logistics, 2 industries which make up the largest cohorts of night workers in the capital and who also rely significantly on migrant workers. We also took issue with the terms that were being used to describe the night. So as you can see on screen, the 2 initial consultation questions asked what the strengths and weaknesses of the nighttime economy are, equating these respectively with what is good and what is not good about London at night. But these categories don't necessarily correlate. So many night workers may of course be a strength of the economy, but is not necessarily a good thing about the nighttime city. And we said this because we know night workers are, on average, lower paid and more precarious than their daytime equivalents, and more likely to work longer hours and in multiple jobs. So for us, engaging with this really live policy initiative in the city at a relatively early stage in the module brought clarity on the policy limits of nocturnal London and fed into the projects we developed for the main group work. And this is particularly true where we address the inequalities of the night as that applies to those with migrant backgrounds and people of colour. It took us beyond a theoretical framework of urban studies and immersed us in what was really a kind of a very practical challenge. So now we'll share the 2 group projects that Mira and I were involved in respectively. And for these projects, we assumed the identities of urban practitioners, a method used to reflect critically on the task of the urban professional. My group assumed the identity of social enterprise and multidisciplinary urban practice, Civic Collective, who produced a report and funding proposal for the London and national governments. We proposed a new mobile civic space in the form of a converted double-decker bus that would seek to promote community cohesion within a non-consumptive after-hours environment. The project responded threefold to an epidemic of loneliness that had been reported in the UK, to the dominance of consumption and alcohol-driven nighttime economic activity, which we know to be exclusionary, and thirdly, to local authority cuts, which had led to community centre and library closures in the UK. And we know these spaces to be spaces of care and centres of social relations in communities, and they really represent a very crucial element of civic infrastructure in the city. So library usage is really fairly representative by class and age measure, but in terms of ethnicity, those from migrant or poor ethnic minority backgrounds are much more likely to be users. So for a location like the one we proposed in the report, which you can see on the map, in the southeast London borough of Lewisham, just under half the population are non-white. So you can see why this was a choice we made. So Civic Collective produced a report and a website that set out our plan for Wonder Here. A lower deck would comprise of a reflection area and a lending library, and could also be used, could also kind of open up onto the street to allow for awnings and tables and chairs to be placed outside, whilst the upper deck could be used as a screening space or function as a low-cost community-oriented venue. We really carefully considered the project from a 360 perspective, so we chose a collective identity inspired by London-based practitioners who work to produce small-scale interventions in the public sphere. We chose the bus as we saw the need for a really flexible public space, and its iconic identity as a symbol of London and as a social leveller made it a really clear manifestation of our intentions. We put together our funding proposal in connection to real calls, such as the Mayor's Crowdfund London platform for grassroots local initiatives. And we pitched the project in connection to policy agendas, including the appointment of a Minister for Loneliness in the UK government, and as complementary to London's nighttime borough champions. And now there's certainly limitations to this proposal too. It was a student project that was worked on over just a couple of months. And so in terms of how we conceive the project more widely, you know, of course our specific publics could have been better defined. And I particularly felt a little bit uneasy playing a part in perhaps shifting the responsibility for creating, or shifting the responsibility for civic urban night to the third sector. So in a sense, doing the work of austerity. Although, of course, I think it has to be said that the night has always been underserved by civic infrastructure and by civic spaces. And so really this was a question of expanding that capacity rather than replacing anything that existed already. But Wonder Here, as a whole, addressed the questions identified throughout the module on safety, exclusion, and inequality in urban nights. And so here I'll pass over to Mia to describe the project that she was involved in.
Thanks, Jordan. So my group and I assumed the role of a writers collective and a publishing house, Invisible Ink, who were focused on shedding light on some more hidden aspects of urban life. So what we did is we set out to produce a series of cookbooks called Urban Metabolism, telling stories of London through its relationship with food and eating. And for this project, we produced the Night Workers edition, featuring 7 nighttime workers and the recipes that sustain them. So as Jordan described, as a class, we were motivated to respond to this commodification of the nighttime and the bias towards culture and leisure to the detriment of the many people working in a range of industries in London at night. So our project began with an exploration of various night work spaces and saw us pounding the streets at places of work and workers' protests alike. We considered a range of different inequalities that are faced by nighttime workers, from transport access to precarious pay and employment, but we ultimately settled on the inequality of access to food and sustenance as our focus for the project. The Mayor's 2017 vision for London as a 24-hour city made a passing reference to the sheer lack of places in the capital that offer nutritious food or even hot drinks, and not least the spaces to consume them safely and comfortably, which is even more relevant now in the current pandemic. So it was important for us also to highlight this issue specifically for those not working in hospitality and nor in bustling nighttime town centres. And what we ended up producing was a physical hand-bound cookbook that you can see on your screens. We featured each person's story of being a night worker in London and a recipe of the food that they eat before, during, or after their shifts. In several cases, those recipes emerged from a sort of wider conversation around their eating habits, and in an edible dialogue with our subjects, we later cooked and photographed that food ourselves. The people featuring in the book were a mixture of those that our group knew personally, from snowballing through our wider networks and those that we approached cold at their places of work. And of the 7 featured, 4, a doctor, a security guard, and 2 university cleaners, were migrants to the UK. And so while by no means a representative sample, we are seeing that these inequalities of access associated with London's urban night are likely disproportionately experienced by its migrants. The medium of the cookbook allowed us to go beyond a critique, as we'd so desired at the start of the project, and to provide an actually illuminating account of an underexplored part of urban life. So emerging from this anthology was a sort of a messier and more diverse set of stories than we might have assumed at the start, and it left the reader to draw their own conclusions. Using this cookbook format was a way of ensuring that the sense-making could take place at both ends of the writing, because we were also concerned with the social processes that we were creating, channeling, and propagating. So, what does all this point to for the field of night studies? In my own project, we found that as researchers, we needed to ourselves almost become night workers in order to properly engage with the subject matter. Students enjoy both the flexibility suited to this type of involvement, as well as what we suggest is a unique student-citizen power relationship. Their vantage point is uniquely positioned to employ non-hierarchical methods of engagement, given their more exploratory and loosely defined position in the world of research. On reflection, the pedagogic motives of this module connect with the concept of an engaged urbanism. We worked in tandem with and considered the realities faced by urban stakeholders, encountered an over-reliance on quantitative data in policymaking with hybrid and imaginative approaches.
On the second point, our experience suggests that a new field of night studies shouldn't shy away from combining creative practice and policy engagement as a form of pedagogy. The performative aspect of acquiring these roles as urban practitioners situated our knowledge in the challenges faced by urban actors. We were really considered to consider the practical, intellectual, ethical and political questions raised in the process of intervening in cities and urban life. And so creative methods are, we suggest, a really key tool to enhance student policy engagement. And the final point we want to make is about the strength of diversity. We all contributed knowledge of local situations from our own geographic perspectives and the skill sets and approaches we had acquired through our professional and academic backgrounds. So I think for the emerging field of night studies, just as in urban studies, there's a need to combine questions of economics with those of epidemiology and of ecology with the built environment. And students shouldn't be drawn, students should be drawn from and be encouraged to work with a range of those professional and disciplinary modes. So we'll leave it there, but thanks for your time and look forward to any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Jordan and Mia. It was really interesting. No news from Marta, so here we are. We have plenty of time for questions and for interesting conversation. Is there anyone that would like to ask a first question? If not, I would like to start. People may be a little shy at the beginning, so I'll start doing the questions. Daniel, about your presentation, there is first thing I would like to say is that you said that there's a contradiction because you are a man and you are researching this matter that concerns women. Well, let me say that I don't think there is any kind of contradiction. You just have to have empathy and comprehension about the situation, and you don't need to be the subject of your research. So please continue your work that I'm sure you're doing it very well. Now for the question. I think I misunderstood something. In the beginning of your presentation, you talked about a psychological approach. Did you said that, or did I misunderstood? You have to, okay.
Yeah, about the rejection you told is, I think maybe sometimes contradictions are something that makes you to grow up. You know, like it's not bad to be contradiction, to have contradiction with yourself, and to is not something you have to use for your rejection or for your guilty. I mean, it's something contradictorial for me. I don't know if contradictorial exists in English, but it's not something I'm embarrassed to do. I mean, it's something I want to keep in mind, that the subject I am and the subject I'm talking about. So, and about the psychological approach, I didn't put in the presentation, but environmental psychology was the framework of my research. But it's difficult to I mean, it's difficult to see an approach to this topic through the psychology. I mean, psychology now, it's kind of very extended, the cognitive conductual psychology. So any other approach of out of this perspective, it's kind of difficult to find some biography or some researchers. So I tried my best to put together this topic and perspective of psychology, but I think it could be more deeper. Like we could research like psychological effects of this kind of situation, but it's something I didn't do, by the way. But it's always a line to follow to future research. I don't know if I answered your question, but
yes, you did. Thank you, Daniel. I believe Olga has a question. The sound, Olga. Okay.
Okay, now it's okay. I have a question to Mia and Jordan. First of all, many thanks for really brilliant talk and really brilliant experience. But what do you think? What kind of influence has studentification for London night time, for London night clubs? Are there any special students activities, students events during this night time? Because for us it's very interesting. Our topic of research is university city. So, and we research students' nightlife, and it's really interesting for us.
I think what's really interesting, obviously, about doing the course at a place like UCL is that we're in the middle of this global city. I mean, London undoubtedly is one of the most well-connected cities, and a city with people from across the globe coming together. And so you have all of these different experiences on your doorstep. And I think, you know, this is why the course at UCL also takes a really strong interest in London itself as a laboratory, as a kind of case study. And really that's, you know, as we said in the presentation, the thematic, the urban light thematic was chosen given, yes, this academic interest that we're seeing, which is present at this conference, but then also the policy interest that had, or the policy kind of traction that had been gaining in London over the last few years. And so I think it's really clear that kind of using examples from the kind of wherever the course or the university is based is really important. I think there definitely were examples during the year where students, including us, kind of used our own experience. Actually, the example which we posted, I think, on one of the slides, which had the drawings of different kind of night walks that we had to do. These were all, this was kind of right at the start of the course. So, you know, we had just kind of really come together as a cohort, and we were placed into pairs, all of us. And usually one half of the pair had lived in London or knew London very well, and the other half had just arrived or was kind of new to the city. And so, you know, the side who knew the city would take this other student to their area to go on a kind of a walk that was familiar, but to do it at nighttime. And you had all of these kind of like really fascinating experiences because of, you know, if you'd done a walk quite regularly during the day, but had never kind of been back to the area at night, it does have a kind of different ecology to it. And so you'd kind of come at it with a new perspective. But for the other side of this kind of pairing, you would be completely new to this area of the city potentially, and have a completely different perspective on it, which, you know, despite being at the same time saying the exact same thing, you have these two different sets of eyes on it. And then also, you know, lots of us, as we said, have these professional backgrounds too. So, you know, we hadn't all just come from a kind of undergrad degree. So I know, for instance, one of the course members runs a club night in London in a kind of, well, it kind of moves between different spaces, but obviously there have been kind of lots of pressures on night spaces in London, and so he brought his experiences of that into the course, and actually kind of fed back from the course into those kind of really engaged kind of night, into those nightclubs and into those nights that he organised. I don't know, Mia, if you have any kind of like other thoughts on that. I mean, the other thing to say is obviously that we have all of these societies at UCL too. So, you know, you have all of these kind of student nights, which, yes, are clearly kind of influence, and maybe we could have actually used that a bit more in some of the kind of case studies that we were doing.
Yeah, I think you've covered a lot there. The only thing I would say is that for Jordan and I, we're both from London originally, so came to this master's and grounded in London, not as students. So I never viewed London as like a student city or a university city, despite the large number of universities there. And so our access point and our experience of what London has to offer wasn't through these sort of, yeah, like the student nights and the sort of activities and societies at UCL. So that's just something to consider about our approach to this topic, and the city is probably as Londoners before students, maybe.
Thank you. Is it okay, Olga? You're okay. Now Ben Kempkin has a question.
Hi everyone, thanks for your presentations. I was just thinking across the presentations that Daniel was talking about quantitative methods, and Jordan and Mia talking about creative methods and immersive kind of experiences of studying the night. And I guess my question is around, well, I think certainly in some contexts, night studies has come through kind of creative practice. So in Berlin, for example, through the Club Commission, and it's coming directly from creative cultural industries to a more kind of academic approach. In London, I think it's interesting that there's this policy interest, but I wondered, Jordan and Mia, whether you still found quite a kind of conservative approach to thinking about evidence in that context, or whether there was an openness to creative mixed methods of the type that you talked about. And I was wondering, I guess, to all of you, whether what you think thinking about the night, how does it open up our way of thinking about different types of knowledge within urban contexts. I don't know whether you have any thoughts on any of those.
Okay, Daniel, Mia, Jordan, anyone who wants to answer?
Well, yeah, just I guess on the point, and the kind of across both presentations, that was also kind of one thing that jumped out at me about this kind of, you know, in Daniel's presentation about the mix between quantitative and qualitative data, which I think is really important. And the focus that we had on more qualitative forms of data, I think, was a specific reaction to, you know, the kind of the issues that we're studying, and maybe what we've seen, you know, over the years as a kind of over-reliance on quantitative data in policy making. That being said, I think what is interesting to see in kind of Greater London authorities and the Mayor's Office response to these kind of questions of the night in the last few years has been definitely that willingness to engage on a more creative and a more a kind of based on kind of mixed methodologies. And so, for instance, I know that the night mayor, Amy LeMay, has been doing, for instance, these kind of night surgeries across London, where people kind of welcome to come and kind of chat about, you know, anything to do with the night with her. And it's just these kind of like very kind of open forums. Again, kind of, I guess that does sort of place an emphasis on kind of qualitative forms of data, of how people feel about you know, how London is at night. Yeah, I think also, you know, our course was kind of shaped by people like Ben as well, who I think, you know, taught one class on the program during the year. And we've been seeing a lot of examples at UCL of academics and of these really fascinating you know, approaches to the night, which I think are giving the opportunity for these policymakers to expand the current apparatus that they have to investigate these issues. So yeah, I think it's definitely you know, that was why we placed such an emphasis maybe on those kind of creative methods. But I think there is definitely an openness in night studies, at least, to really do a kind of a proper, a kind of true interdisciplinary and methodological mix.
Daniel, Mia, would you like to add anything else? No? Wait, you are all satisfied? Okay. I would like just to say one more thing. I think hearing Daniel and then Jordan and Mia, I think that there's a real question of visibility here about what's happening at night. And I think that night studies overall, with all the interdisciplinarity that it's obvious in this field, we are all trying to give visibility to what happens at night, because it is kind of an exceptional world. It runs on its own rules, different rules, right? And then that's why maybe some situations happen there that doesn't happen during the day. And Daniel began to ask in his presentation, is there safety for women at night? So no, absolutely not. And there's not safety, not only for women, but for everyone, but women, you know that, and you know, Daniel, that suffer a little bit more with those things. So we have to, I think our mission here with the night studies is to draw attention to the night, to think about the night, as this session is named after. We have to think about the night, and we have to draw attention to it from the city hall, from the government, from the state. We have to draw attention. And that book that Jordan and Mia showed, from the Urban Metabolism and drawing attention to the night workers, that's a really good example. And I would like to see that in Lisbon too, because they are absolutely invisible, those night workers, and they make the city work. They make the city work in the morning. That's because they were there during the night. And they are perfectly anonymous. And that is a mission that we should embrace. So I wasn't clear about that point. That book that you made, was that only like a prototype, or did you that it was I'm sorry, I'm missing the word. Did you publish it? Did it have any visibility?
No, it's a prototype, exactly.
Okay.
I've been thinking about trying to sort of republish it, or sort of publish it, but update it, maybe expand on it a bit, and it goes back to what Ben's question a bit about how conservative is the appetite for different types of data, and this may be more to do with what I have access to, but I wasn't sure ever how I could use this book to get out there in some way, to sort of do exactly what you said, shedding some light on this very hidden aspect of urban life. So yeah, I think that's an ongoing project, something I'd like to continue working on.
Please do. That's a really important work that you're doing. And maybe if we can here in Lisbon, in Portugal, can we take your example and do something close to it, with your cooperation, of course?
That would be great.
Yeah, thank you. I think Daniel has, the other Daniel? No, there are two Daniels. Daniel Calvo has a question, yes?
Yeah, I have a question to the other Daniel, actually. So Daniel, well, thank you for all your contributions this afternoon. It was everything very interesting. Well, there's actually, I don't know, Daniel is here? Yeah, okay. I don't see the big picture. So I'm not sure if I understood well your methodology in terms, I have some problems with audio. So it was with kind of collecting of data you did. It's like a survey. You did also some interviews. This data we see. This is the first question, and I have a comment or a suggestion for you. That it's the importance of the applications for smartphones. So I think that it's very used now for some governments and also associations and groups of women that create applications in the smartphones to predict sexual assaults and also to collect data. I think that some governments are involved in collecting data through these applications. And this is well, these applications more or less work like that, to inform, for example, the geography of a city, to inform of a specific dangerous spots to avoid at night for women to cross through these spaces. And also I think that there are applications to find other women to go back home with these other women that are in the application. I don't know. I was thinking about this thing, and I remember that I searched about this some time ago, and I find some applications of this sort. So this first question, what's about the specifics of methodology, and if you are willing to apply this kind of methodology centered in the applications. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would like first to highlight the thing that Rosa said about the visibility. I think the point in common of the two presentations here is exactly the visibilization of things that it seems that in the night comes the darkness, and in the darkness you can not see the problems more important to see. I mean, during the day you can like can be more evident the inequalities and the problems of the society, but in the night it seems that we forget that everything happens like that, and the night is not for everyone. It's like for the mainstream subject and for the people who wants to consume and who like to have fun, and not all the people is avoid to have fun with the same measure. About your questions, I didn't have time to to explain everything like properly, because it's kind of difficult. But my first idea was to use a methodology very used in Barcelona with in a collective called Collectiu.6. They do this methodology called marchas exploratorias, exploratory walks. I think like the partners here did something similar, but it's like something more participative, and it's like walking around the city of the spots you identify, like spots risk of this kind of situation, and to make an analysis of the urbanism of this spot, the lightness, the affluence of people there, the why is happening this in this concrete place. So I wanted to do this at first, but I haven't time of doing this because I have the pressure of the degree final work. So I finally decided to recollect this data around the online form, like the instrument I made were made with Google Forms and some items that I recollected by online by spreading my social media social networks, like Facebook, WhatsApp, and like that. But I wanted to do like the second phase of the project, like this exploratory walk, because I think it's it's warmer, it's closer when you do this methodology, participative methodology with it's the quality of the research is always better. But yeah, I only did like that. I don't remember your second question. I don't know if I asked that.
Well, it was a comment. It was a comment about the existence of applications for a smartphone, and maybe I don't know. Maybe it's difficult to access the data, but maybe you can see in the cities you are studying if they are providing some information from these applications, especially in terms of geography. I mean, to detect special dangerous areas or practices of avoiding danger by women at night, this kind of things. And you say the word march, and then I remember that in Barcelona, the night before the International Women's Day, some feminist associations made a march of torch or march with torch to signal some spaces to go together, all the women in a march, to be claiming the streets at night. This is the meaning of this kind of march.
About the applications you told, the apps, Hollaback, the project I mentioned, it's exactly that, and I know there are a lot of platforms. using like that.
Mm.
I would like to know how to program
your own app
and do my own, but I think there are like the tools are there. So I think the lack is not in the activism, because it's growing up feminism and all the in Madrid also another framework very important for me is the work, the militant work, a collective from Fuenlabrada, a town near from Madrid. There is a collective there of women that made something like that, of that you told of the torch. Yeah, I don't know. I think the problem is the academic world, because I think I have the feeling, maybe it's because I'm too young and I only know the academic of the university degree and not people doing studies or research